Hello, everybody. My name is Lewis Lee from All Ends Media, and you are playing in traffic. And we have Mark Greene as our special guest. Hello, Mark.
Hey, how you doing, Lewis? Thanks for having me here today.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on. Let's see who we have in the chat room here. We are also live on YouTube, so if everybody can share and like if you're there on YouTube.
Very cool.
And
there's Jim.
Hi, Jim. So we're waiting on Ray to jump in. He'll jump in a few minutes.
All right.
So Mark, tell us how you got started in the podcast business.
Oh gosh, how many hours do we have this evening? Well, I'll give you the condensed version. I had worked for 20 plus years at a car care company called Griot's Garage, and I was president of that company and running it, and took some time off because my wife got very ill and I needed to be home to care for her. So I left Griot's, and while I was at home caring for her, she was bedridden for months. And I was trying to figure out something to do. And my son, who was in college at the time, came home and he said, "Dad, you love going to car shows. You love talking to people about their cars and their businesses. Why don't you do that?" And I said, "Well, how is that going to raise money so I can pay for that expensive tuition that you've got at that college you're going to on the East Coast?" And he said, "Well, have you ever thought about a podcast?" And I said, "What's that? I don't know what that is." And so he said to me, explained it to me. So I started investigating it, and I said, "You know what? This is a cool platform." Now, this was 6 years ago, a little over 6 years ago. So I did all this research, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to create a podcast where I talk to people who've wrapped their passion for cars, trucks, and motorcycles into their careers and into their lives. And I came up with, actually, my wife came up with the name Cars Yeah. You like that?
Yeah.
And
sweet.
So I came from a marketing background, so I know how to sell stuff. And so I created this whole concept, and I decided that I was going to start doing 5 shows a week. And everybody told me I was nuts. Wow. Even people in the podcast industry said, "Nobody does 5 shows a week. Are you crazy? How are you going to do that?" And so I just said, I'm going to do it. I'm very tenacious, persistent. And so I launched the show May 28th, 6 years ago. So coming up here in May will be my 6th anniversary.
Okay.
And this morning I just interviewed, my 1,549th guest here on Cars Yeah. So I just wanted to share with people who don't work in the car world, people who do, so that those people that wish they could figure out a way to do it. And that's what I've done. So you can listen to all my shows on my website. They're all archived there. You can listen on any mobile podcast app that you want to. And then I started a second podcast as if I wasn't busy enough in February. Yeah. So I started with Keith Martin, who is the publisher of Sports Car Market Magazine. Okay. And I said, "Hey, Keith, let's do a podcast together once a week where we interview people who are in the automotive world of buying and selling collectible cars. We'll talk about the investment qualities and so forth." And we titled it Buy, Sell, Hold. You can find it on my website, on Sports Car Market's website. And we do that every week. So we just launched our 11th show this week. And we're having some fun doing that. So I'm a podcaster now. Whoa.
Nice. Hey, this media is just so wide open. I mean, you can talk about anything on a podcast, but what's nice is you have control over it. So that's really a blessing. We have Ray. Right. Ray is in here somewhere, but his picture didn't come up. Are you here, Ray?
Where's Ray?
He might have.
I heard somebody come in. Somebody in the room. They're not in my room.
Yeah, let me re-invite him in. But when you said you do 5 shows a week, is that you started out at 5 or did you work your way to it?
No, I started at 5. My goal was to do 5 shows a week, and the reason I did that was to build up a list of guests very fast. I had another ulterior motive because I figured, okay, how do you make money doing this? Because you could do a podcast as a hobby, but my goal was not to have a hobby. I had a kid in college and a wife who was at home ill with medical bills, and I have a house I have to pay for, and cars, all that little thing. So I learned that it's through advertisers. So I thought, okay, if I could build up a list of guests really fast and start to build up a list of followers. And I started doing email campaigns so that I could build email lists that I could market to online, because I did that when I was at Griots. I mean, it was all part of the Griots brand. We were selling through catalogs originally, but online. So real fast, 5 shows a week starts to add up very quick, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's a dragon. It's a 5-headed dragon, I call it, that I have to feed every week. It was not easy. There were some weeks that I came really close to missing a show. I'd have somebody on a Tuesday, and I'd edit, because I record and then I edit the shows so that my guests sound as good as possible. Right. And then I would post that show that night, because my shows go live at 2 a.m. every day, 5 days a week. And then now we have the six show a week, Buy, Sell, Hold, that goes up on Tuesdays. The only day I missed, and I'll see if I can get through this without a tear here, is when I lost my father. And I learned a valuable lesson, because I had not had a lot of shows, what I call in the can, meaning they're all done, ready to go, because you have to post your shows up to a feed, and they go down to all the mobile podcast apps, your website, YouTube, everywhere, Facebook, where all my shows can be found. And my dad had come to visit for a week, and I flew my kids in so that we could spend a week together with him. He was 84 years old, but he was not feeling very good. He was kind of ill. And that Friday, or that whole week, I didn't record shows. I'm always recording shows. This week I've recorded, 12 shows so far this week. So he went home, and his trip home was not good. I didn't hear from him. And on that Monday, I started recording shows for that week, because I had Monday done, but not Tuesday, Wednesday. And I got a call from his doctor and said, "Your dad's really ill. He's not going to make it." And he literally passed that Monday night. So I couldn't get down to San Diego to see him. And at that point, hey, I think I see a face there.
And I had to go over mountains and streams. I'm sorry to interrupt, Mark. Continue.
That's okay. That's okay. So I told my wife that, I said, "Look, I need to go down to San Diego." And my dad's passed. And I said, "But I don't have a show for tomorrow." And she said, "Well, so what? Your dad just died." And I said, "I know, but I've got sponsors. I've got listeners. I've got a commitment, And she said, "I know, but your dad just died. Like, forget about it." And so I said, "I can't. I mean, I'm driven, like I'm a crazy man, So she said, "Well, why don't you do what the TV shows do? Do a rerun, pick your favorite show and run it again." So, that's why I married a woman who's smarter than me, right?
That's right.
So I called my sponsors and said, "Would you be okay with this?" They all just kind of said, "Mark, go to San Diego. Don't worry about us." And I quickly that night redid a show before I got on a late flight. While I was down there, I recorded some more shows, and I got back on track. So I missed one day out of 5.5, 6 years. But the show must go on, right? The show must go on. So that's what we did. But and I've kept it up. Somehow I've kept it up. But now I have, like, the show I recorded this morning will go up the middle of May. So I'm about 3 weeks ahead of myself. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
How long do your podcasts run, Mark?
They're about 35 to 45 minutes each.
Okay.
It depends on how much the guest likes to talk. So
I picked up on one thing you said, where you said that you'll take the audio and edit it and clean it up.
Yeah.
And I typically do that with my weekly radio show a lot. And the nice thing is, y'all throw it in Audacity, and you can look at that waveform, and you learn the spot.
Yeah. It's like me. I tend to take a breath, and I can see that in the waveform, and I've never figured out how to not breathe while I'm talking.
I sound so much better on a rebroadcast.
Yeah.
But, when you said that, I'm thinking some of these podcasts can go 2-3 hours, and I'm saying, oh man, how long is this guy spending in the edit?
I think there's a lot of podcasts that they don't bother editing, because I've been on podcasts, some of which that I go, wow, you left that in? Oh man. And I'm part of a big podcast group, because I learn a lot from other people, and people will say, "Well, why do you spend so much time editing?" And I said, "It's because I want my guests. I've invited them into my home, into Cars Yeah. I want them to sound like $1 million. And I think I owe them that honor to spend that time to help them sound, because a lot of people are not eloquent speakers. I'm not either, but a lot of people and cough, and they don't know, they stutter a little bit. And so I owe that to my guests who I've invited here to present them in the best light that I can. And that's what I do. So it can take 40 minutes to an hour to edit a show to do it right. But I think that I owe my guests that. And here's the other reason. There's a selfish reason. They're more likely to share it if they love it. I've had people go, wow, I didn't know I sounded that good. And I go, well, you really didn't.
You didn't.
Well, but now you do. You sound like $1 million. So
yeah, the worst part, the worst part for me at least, is when we'll have have a few people on at a time, and you get that crosstalk, and you can't. There's nothing you can do, and sometimes you have to leave it in because it followed a thread, and if you took it out, you lost a piece of that sentence that's key. So
right, exactly. But you know what? I've interviewed people in some very bizarre situations. I had one guest who was in Italy sitting at a cafe outside, and you could hear the Italian women in the background yelling at each other. And the church bells ringing. Is that Terry I see down there?
Yes, sir.
Dude, how you doing? Terry was a guest on my show. Yeah, he was just a guest on my show. He's my man.
Yeah, that's my brother right there, man.
Yeah.
Where's the strap?
Oh, well, I got my Washburn back here.
I see it back there,
Yeah. The fender's on the wall over here, my hot rod fender. Yeah, so I see your drum set there. Yeah, Terry is one of these, well, anyone who knows him, that guy has got more energy packed into him than anybody I've ever met. And I was really honored to get to meet him and have him on the show and have him share his inspiration for my listeners. I mean, that is one enthusiastic man right there.
Oh, yeah.
The pleasure's all mine, man. And like I said, we're a family, and the car community really isn't that big when you think about it. And like I said, if I can entertain people with my videos, and as far as I've gotten, and it's a beautiful thing. Me and Lewis Lee, we talk about it constantly. Like we just can you imagine back like 10 years ago that if someone said that you'd be doing this and you'd be doing this at this point in your life, and we just. I can speak for Lewis. I believe I can. That we just find this is an amazing ride, and people like Ray up there, and it's people like you, Mark, that make it possible, and especially the people in the room. I mean, these people now become friends, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. And I did a TV show, 13 episodes of Cars Yeah TV last year, and I just. It all kind of came together. We're trying to make it happen this year, but with this whole pandemic, it's kind of put everything on hold. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I sat there one night watching the show, and I looked at my wife and I go, well, "How did that happen? Who is that guy? I don't look so good. I need to take better care of myself." But thank you. But my wife said, "Yeah, but you did it. Yeah, that's you right there." And it's just like us right here. And every day that I do my podcast and I share my inspiration with people and people like you, Terry, and I'm going to be having Lewis on Cars Yeah, and Ray, I got to get you on the show too. So sure. Lewis, and got to get you on the show too, so that we can all share the love here and share some inspiration. Because my mantra is inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and that's what I'm all about. As long as my guests are inspiring and they're an automotive enthusiast, they're welcome to share their story. And boy, I had some incredible stories on my show, some that have put me back on my heels as the person is telling me. And I go, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're saying this.
You've come to the right place with stories. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. We got them here. But
we can tell some stories.
The thing here on this show is we can't edit. It's all live. So whatever comes out.
Well, I'm a little nervous here. Yeah, I was hoping Terry didn't ask me to play any guitar because I'm
to that point, Mark, what is your background, your broadcast background? And then I can share my horror stories with you.
Okay.
How did you get your chops?
Well, I just made it up as I went. I've been a car guy forever. I grew up in Southern California, grew up in a beautiful place called La Jolla, California. Met my wife at UCSD, where we went to college together. And I never thought I'd leave Southern California because I was a surfer back when I had hair down. Literally, I had hair down to here. Yeah. I did one day.
I love this picture.
I'll have to show you a picture. I rubbed it all off though, working so hard. And I worked for 11 years in advertising. So I was a creative director and I was also an account executive. So I brought work into the firm. And also I designed marketing things, catalogs, brochures, all that. And then one of the clients I picked up was a startup company called Griot's Garage. And that company was just starting. Richard Griot had just launched it. He mailed me his first catalog. In fact, the car that was on that first catalog, I ended up owning. It was a 1972 911S Porsche. And I got the account, brought it into our firm, and then we became friends. And so he said, hey, I want you to come on board. There was only 3 people in the business. And he said, I want you to create a brand, a high-end brand for us. And I want you to also do all the marketing and all the merchandising and empty the trash and answer the phones and take orders and build this company with me. And so I took a huge gamble. My wife trusted in me. She left a career as an engineer, and we moved from Del Mar, California up to Gig Harbor, Washington, where they had to kind of bring me kicking and screaming because it rains a little bit up here.
Yeah.
I was driving a 1984 Porsche Carrera at the time that had a top that was not really that waterproof. So I had to sell that car, buy a coupe. But so I helped build that brand, and I was there for over 20 years. The last 6 or so years, I was the president of the company. But I was really proud of what we built. We built an amazing brand. And while I was doing that, I got to learn how to race vintage cars. I did that for 12 years. So I got a racing license and raced vintage cars, traveled the world looking for very cool products and so forth. And then my wife, as I told Louis at the beginning of the show here before you piped in, Ray, my wife got ill. I needed to come home and care for her. She was bedridden for quite a while. And so while I was home, my son gave me this idea to become a podcaster. And I had to I'd never done any of this at all. I was a behind the scenes guy. Richard Grillo was the face of the business. I was always pushing him out there, but I was behind running things and organizing things and doing stuff, right? So I had to figure this out. And it took me 3 months from the time I said, I'm going to do it. And I launched my first show. I built my own website. I learned how to do that. I learned how to edit. We were talking about Adobe Audition, learned what the waveforms were and all that. And I called a lot of people who are podcasters and asked a lot of questions. I watched a lot of YouTube how-to videos. And then I just launched, like the Nike ad says, just do it.
Just do it.
And I just kind of have figured out. When I go back and listen to the first 100 shows, I kind of go, oh my gosh. And I'm still learning. I learned from great people that I have on my show. I've had celebrities and racers and artists and builders, and I mean, all sorts of people, over 1,500 interviews now. So it's like seat time in a race car. You just get better and better. So
muscle memory. What year is it you started with Griots?
I started with Griots in they became an account of mine in 1991 when I was working at a design firm in San Diego. And then I started officially there, although I started about 6 months before I became a real employee. I was actually working both jobs. So that would have been 1993, 4.
Okay.
And so was there during all those growing years. And then we moved up here to the Northwest about 2 years into Griots. We were in Fife, and then Richard found an old Coca-Cola bottling building, and he came over and he said, hey, I found this crummy old building. I want you to design it into our corporate headquarters. And so that became my wife called my mistress, my evening job. So I was really proud of what I designed and built there. My dad was an architect, so he taught me a lot about design and building. So we developed a beautiful corporate headquarters. We designed a place in Indianapolis to distribute and make our car care products from. So we had 2 locations. I was going back and forth. So yeah, I was there for over 20 years, but I was actually there a little longer because I was working with him in the early years when I was still in the design firm. Long time.
In anticipation of this meeting, I want to show you something. In 1995, I bought my first Impala Super Sport.
Cool.
And the first thing I bought was from Griots Garage. It was this.
The boar's hair brush.
And I still use it today. I mean, it's getting a little worn. I find pieces of the hair in the molding.
My gosh. It brings a smile to my face because I found that product. I've been to SEMA 31 years in a row.
Wow.
I went to Auto Mechanica, 20 years in a row. I mean, I've been all over the world. And what we prided ourselves on there was high-end quality products. With a leaning towards car care as the business developed, because consumable commodities, you can make a lot more money than selling screwdrivers that people abuse and use as a chisel and send it back and say, this broke, give me a new one. Right. So that boar's hair brush was something that I found, and it was probably at a SEMA show. It might've been in Europe, but I say boar's hair because brushes on paint can harm paint if they're not super soft. And that company that originally made that brush actually put boar's hair in it, and it had split ends, like split ends on women's hair. They got split ends.
You can actually see it. I mean, not on camera, but I can see it here.
Yeah, super soft. So, so we got that together, and I wrote all the copy for all the products. And I remember that copy, and I said, when you make a boar's hair brush, the first thing you got to do is find a real good piece of hickory wood that's strong, can hold up the water, and then you got to catch a boar and shave him. And if you think that's easy, go try to do that.
Yeah,
right. So that is incredible. That's impressive. And I'll tell you, being in the business of selling products, we would have products that would come back that have been, I mentioned the chisel, screwdriver being used as a chisel. We get products back that you could tell had been really abused. I got one of those brushes back. The bristles were this long.
Wow.
And I looked at it and I went, what the heck? So I looked up that account. Well, that guy owned a car washing business. And he had bought like 30 of those things. And I didn't know he owned a business at first. And I went, how did he do this? So I called him and I said, how did you abuse the boar like you did? I mean, you messed up this boar bad. And he said, well, I have a car wash. We wash hundreds of cars a day. So that brush has probably washed 5,000 cars.
Wow.
And I said, well, it's kind of lived its life. You really want me to give you a new brush? I said, when you order a 6-pack of beer and you drink the beer, do you really expect the beer company to give you another 6-pack? You kind of used it up, right?
Can't hurt to ask.
Yeah, well, that's what he said. And he goes, okay, I know. I kind of tried to. And I said, you know what? I'm going to send you one anyway because you're a great customer. So I'll send you another one. But don't do that again.
I was just starting to think it was maybe time to replace it finally, just because of its age and because I'm lose hair. And I said, but it just works so good. It's still
it gets better with time. That's the thing about that brush. So years later, that company that made those went out of business. We tried to find other people that made those, and I don't know if they still sell them or not. I've been gone from Grails for a long time, but I still have one of those in my garage.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And it's like everything else. It's like the way I handle my tools. When I'm done with it, I wash it out, I rinse it out, and I store it right. I don't just put it away wet. Well, kind of wet, but
this guy had a big giant bin of like a pot of water, and he would leave the brushes floating in there all the time.
Okay.
So he was having problems with the wood finally. I mean, you leave wood in water for a year, it's going to rot, right? So
if I did that here in the East, it'd be in a block of ice.
Yeah.
So I actually bring it in the house in the winter. I actually do bring it in the house in the winter, so it's out of the cold garage.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah.
Mark, you really can't tell, but Ray has everything right in the 5-foot radius of his seat. So anything you ask him, he can reach and grab it.
Oh, yeah?
If you want to look at anything close tonight, we can do that too, because I'm using the microscope.
All right. Well, I don't have that many cool things. I'll show you something, though, that I do have. You want to see something really cool? Watch this.
That always scares me. Nice.
When I was at Griot's, one of my many jobs was developing products, and I found a guy that could make some really cool desk accessories. Mm-hmm. So you know what this looks like, right?
It's a cylinder. It's a cylinder jug. Yeah.
This is has a place to put paper clips with little magnet in there.
Nice.
There's a place in the back to put some Post-it notes and some pencils and things in the front. So that company ended up kind of stealing that idea and selling a lot of those.
Nice.
Here's another one. Brake caliper tape dispenser.
That's neat. Yeah.
See, I need that.
Very cool. I like that.
One more.
Injectors. Oh, cool. It's a stash box.
Business cards.
Nice.
Yeah.
And paper clips.
Oh, cool.
Including, if I can pull one out, a paper clip that is a Porsche.
Wow. Look at that.
Because I like Porsches.
Neat.
Yeah. So, I got to develop so many cool things. And I think if you see over my shoulder, you recognize what that thing is?
I thought that looked like a camshaft at first, but it's kind of short.
It's out of my 1960 Lotus Formula Junior 18.
Okay.
The day at Sears Point that I ventilated my engine.
Yeah.
Gave it some air.
Yeah, unfortunately, it got a lot of air. It just blew itself to a million pieces. It was an old Coventry Climax engine, and and the transmission in that car came out of a Renault Dauphine.
Oh, wow.
If you know what those are.
We have a listener that has one of those cars.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it had a very delicate gearbox because Colin Chapman was all about lightweight in his racing cars.
Mm-hmm.
And so that car, I needed to fix that gearbox. We'll try to find one of those. Well, you know where we found some was in a junkyard in Tijuana.
Really? Yeah,
2 Renault Dauphines that were upside down in a junkyard in Tijuana. We pulled the transmissions out of those. I ended up selling one to a guy who was a fellow racer. And I remember that car. The shifter was on the left inside the cockpit, and the H pattern was backwards. So first gear was up to the right.
Oh.
And you had to really stop and think because you don't want to go from second or from third to second thinking you're going to fourth.
I'll tell you something. I drive stick shift cars, and there's times that I just did it recently where I will shift with my left hand for reasons that we don't have to get into here. And I can do it.
I don't want to know.
I can do it because the pattern is the same, but I don't think I could do it if it was reversed.
You know what I ended up doing? I printed out really large and I put it right on my dash.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, and a dollar sign.
There you go.
To remind me not to, because I almost did it a few times and I go, oh, stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that day at Sears Point, I had another race car. It was a 67 Lola T290 sports racer. And that was a bad weekend. Blew up both engines that weekend.
Wow.
Just because race engines grenade, right?
Right.
They just do. So, yeah, I came home from that weekend and told my wife, we're probably not going to Hawaii this year. So,
yeah.
I always had the garage to go escape to when I say stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, we had a lady on here, Sarah, that owns a Porsche
junkyard
somewhere.
Sarah! Is Sarah here?
No, she's not here, but she's been on our show.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. She's been on my show and she was on my TV show.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good person, man. Good.
Yeah. In fact, I met her husband before he passed. She lost her husband, as you know. And so he was on my show. DeCarmen is her last name. And about 3 years later, after
Sarah. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
okay.
Sarah DeCarmen. Porsche LA Dismantlers is the name of their business. And so she was a guest on my show. And then when I was doing the Cars Yeah TV show, I said, Sarah, I would like to have out of the 13 episodes, 2 women. And I had interviewed Carly Starr from the California Automotive Museum in Sacramento. We got to go there and do a show there. And so I said, I want you to be the 13th or I think it was the 12th episode because the 13th was a recap. And so we went to LA and we spent a day with her. She brought 3 of her daughters. I believe she has, or did she bring 2 and she has 3 daughters?
I think
She has 3?
She has 3, yeah.
Yeah, so she brought 2. And so we put them on the show and we got to see her facility. She's a dynamo. She's a powerhouse lady and has really, imagine not only being in the junkyard business, which is kind of a tough, rough business, right? But taking it over as a tall, beautiful blonde woman with 3 daughters to raise and no husband. Yeah. She is one brave lady. Incredible person. And she's a powerhouse in the Porsche community. I'm a big time Porsche guy. That's been my mark of choice for years. So shout out to Sarah. She's awesome. Yeah.
Great. He's contemplating on coming to SEMA. We're going back and forth. I was like, you got to get out here. Last the 2019. It's just like, it's only a couple more days. Sarah, get out here.
SEMA. Well, that's another one. I just, we all have our fingers crossed that SEMA is going to happen. I'm kind of getting, and I don't know, so I'm not going to say this, but I'm getting wind that probably Car Week, Pebble Beach and that whole week is going to be
really
because the Legends of the Autobahn, the BMW Club just announced yesterday they're going to cancel that show, and that week has all those car events that happen. And I'm afraid with the recent announcement just yesterday, day before, Governor Newsom saying everything for the summer is going to be kaput. We're not going to allow you to do anything. It's just, I don't want to bring a downer to the show today, but it's unfortunate. So we'll all keep our fingers crossed that SEMA still happens, because that shows
all us that we got to face at some point, because with the way it's going, you don't want to be a downer. You pray that it happens, but you can't be surprised if it doesn't.
No, and we just don't know what's happening with this whole thing. So we just got to keep being positive. And Terry and I were on a show a couple weeks ago with why is my brain going dead here, Terry? Lanier.
Oh, Mike Greene.
Mike, yeah. And he was just a guest on my show today, actually.
Yeah,
I heard it. Cars, yeah. So exactly. So we just got to keep being positive and presenting good things to people, and doing shows like this are awesome. There's a really cool event that I just got invited to today by a guy named Andy Reid. He's doing an event on Facebook, and his Facebook thing, let me see if I can figure out what this is called here. It's a Concours event that he's doing for people with model cars. So it's like a Concours event, but you post your model car there, and then he has judges that are judging this that are like Bill Warner from Amelia Island and some heavy hitter guys in the car world, and they have weekly contests for your model cars. So there's people out there like Andy and you guys and others that are trying to find ways to engage us car people and keep this going. So kudos to everyone that's working hard. We're all at home. This has been a weird deal for me because I work from home, so I don't go anywhere except for events. So it's not really, it's not that new to me, but it's definitely, affect a lot of people. And my wife is now home, so she's always going, do I have to be quiet? Are you doing a show?
Yeah. She's Yante to be a judge with that model thing. Steve has been flooding Instagram with his model car and model pictures. Yeah. I know he had a lot of stuff, but he's been killing it every day with multiple posts. And the guy is just a genius with building a model any which way but loose. Actually, in that way too.
Well, I got really lucky. If you look over my shoulder here, right there, that is a model that a friend of mine, he was actually one of the cameramen on my TV show, Jake Gunnarsson. He built that model and gave it to me as a gift. It's an exact replica of my 1987 Porsche Turbo.
Oh, cool.
The thing about my car that's really rare is it was a paint to sample ordered car in a 6-stage metallic pearl orange.
Oh, wow.
He matched the color. He even has the Cars Yeah sticker on the rear window.
Nice.
Of the model. He matched my license plate. My license plate says HVE fun, have fun. Yeah. And so he sent it to me as a gift. So that's the model that I'm entering into the contest. So I'm hoping I win something.
Glue this on the roof.
Oh, look at that.
See, I'm telling you, Ray has something of everything right there next to him.
Or the metal one.
Anything we talk about, he has it.
Yeah, it's right out. That's right off the hood of a Porsche. Now, if that one had orange stripes instead of red, that thing would be worth about $1,000.
I have to look outside. I may have a few more.
Really? Well, if you've got the orange ones, which are the old ones from the old long hoods, those are the ones worth.
Yeah, this is definitely like a maroon kind of red.
Yeah, it's kind of red. Yeah, that came a little bit later. So
it's got a texture to it too.
Oh yeah.
Right. What was the name of that song? Agava Vita? What was it?
Inagata da Vida.
Inagata da Vida, baby.
We were talking about that on Mark's show the other day. He said that he was. You remember when you said you're gonna go off and you're gonna listen to Agava da Vida? And I was like, yeah, me and Ray were talking about that a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah. No, that takes me back to high school.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Me
Ray
too.
Ray had to turn me on to them.
We were talking about it. Terry was in the studio with me a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And I queued it up in Spotify, played it right on the, just brought it up on the air. You just the beginning riff of that song. If you've ever heard it, it just evokes something to you, Oh
yeah. It's dates or high school dances or, something. When I was in high school, let me ask you guys this. Lewis, what was your high school ride, your car?
Oh, that's my question.
Well, I had an 80 Dodge van.
Oh, you're the guy he's the guy no dad wanted to show up in front of the house to pick up his daughter.
I got to tell you the story. I picked up a girl in the van. Her dad had a van too. So he was looking at my van. And he was like, oh, that's really nice. So we take off, right? So when we get back, her mom's like, you let her go in a van? And he got in so much trouble, and I dropped her off and I was out.
Yeah. No dad wants to see a van pull up in front of his house. That's not gonna. That's when I pull out my shotgun and go, see you later, boy. Yeah, you're gone. You're gone. You're not taking my daughter out. So how about you, Ray?
I'm miffed by this because that's the question I always ask everybody.
Oh, I'm sorry. I stole your thunder.
No. I've said it many times. I said when one of my interview tricks that I learned by just doing it is if an interview starts to get slow or the guest gets runs out, peters out, the spark is lost. We always go back to that the standby question. What did you drive in high school? And that usually evokes a whole new level of interest in the conversation.
Oh yeah, they get excited.
I mean, for me, well, I could tell you the car that I have in the body shop right now, I had in high school. It's a 65 GTO.
You had that in high school.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't.
You were like the cool guy.
No, it was only 10 years old and it already had rust. No, back then in the 70s, everybody had cool stuff. I've always had just drivers, but hot rods and drivers.
Well, that's cool. And Terry, what was yours?
Usually your first car is your car that your mother had. My first car, my mother had a cool car. She had a 75 Camaro.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's why when you said you took your license in a 74, that was a night. But yours was a Z28. Mine was a regular. Mine was it was 8-cylinder with a 2-barrel. And I remember that was the first year they had the wraparound back window.
Oh yeah.
Last year.
Right.
And I remember my mother. Oh my God. Because my mother knew that I was doing things to the car because I couldn't leave the car. And this thing had a 350 with a 2-barrel, right? And she's like, "You better not be out there." And now I'm putting this Holly double pumper on there, change them, operate all that, And she's like, "You better not be out." So now, Ma, you got to take the engine apart to fill the windshield wiper fluid.
Yeah.
These things happen.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Your mom was on to you, Terry.
Oh, my mom in the back. Around the corner and do it. What are you doing in front of your house? So,
Terry, I think I told you this. I think I told you, Terry, that actually one of the first cars I actually ever owned was a 56 Chevy.
Oh,
you did tell me that.
I think I was only like 14 years old, and an old woman near my friend's house gave me the car. It was in a dilapidated garage. It never left that garage. I just kind of stripped it for parts, which I still have.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
And was it a hard top or was it a 4-door?
I almost think it was a 4-door, but it didn't really matter because I couldn't do anything with it. I was 14 years old, but I did learn how to strip parts off it. So, like I said, I still have them. So if you need 56 parts, I got the front lights and the rear lights.
The front lights and the rear lights. What about the chrome bezel? Will the chrome for the 4-door?
I didn't know how to take chrome off of anything back then. So
no. Chrome was heavy back then.
Screws I could handle, but that was about it.
Yeah.
All right. I got a question.
Okay.
What was the first car you put together, like the custom or your first giddy up car? You know what I mean?
Yeah. For me, it was a 1967 Carmen Ghia.
Wow.
And I got that car after about 8 months of my first car, which was totally boring. It was a 67 Chevy Nova 4-door with the little 4-cylinder, a grandma car with the even had the plastic seat covers with the little bumps on it.
Listen, people want those now.
Yeah, I know, but back then it was not cool. And so I bought a Carmen Ghia, promptly brought it home, took it to a friend's house, stripped it all apart. We found out there was, the nose had been pushed in. It was carefully crafted with Bondo and all that. So we went back through the car, but I took the engine out, which was a 1600. We beefed it up into a 2110cc with a dual Delardo carbs and modified the engine, make it faster, put some deep set chrome wheels on it with Porsche hubcaps, painted it with a combination of Porsche Guards Red and Porsche Signal Orange, 50-50 mix. And so when you looked at the car next to an orange car, it looked red. But if you put it next to a red car, it looked orange. It was almost like a day glow, like Marlboro F1 day glow.
What made you think of doing that? What was the impetus for that?
Well, because I was a Porsche guy, but I couldn't afford one. So it was my poor man's Porsche. And so when we were going to paint it, my friend helped me paint it. We never painted a car before. We borrowed a spray gun and did it in his garage. We totally destroyed his mom's washer and dryer. It was covered with paint. She was a little angry with us. And so I said, well, I love Guards red, but I like this Signal orange. And he said, why don't we mix them? I go, oh, okay. So we mixed them, and we wet sanded between all the paint. To me, it looked beautiful. It was probably the crappiest paint job in the world, but to me, it looked really pretty. Yeah. And the inside, I took the car down to Tijuana because I lived in La Jolla, California. We went down to Tijuana. We had the seats recovered in a beautiful black vinyl, but we did the center inserts in black corduroy.
Whoa.
Because it's hot in Southern California and the car had no air conditioning. So when you're in there with your shorts on and no shirt, you wouldn't stick to the seat because it was the corduroy. And then what else did I do to that car? I took all the top Rover Riders off the bumpers. So it just had kind of that SoCal Ghia look, and painted the Carmen Ghia logo, took the Volkswagen logo off, put the Carmen Ghia logo in black. And then the front grille, I painted that black, just to be a little different. And then the VW in the center, I took the VW out and hand painted that and stuff. So, and then, you have to have the killer stereo, right? Yeah. And those cars, if you remember, they had a bench seat in the back that folded forward, and there was a compartment back there. And so that's where I built a custom subwoofer and covered it in the same vinyl. So I had the killer stereo system, and I had that car all the way through college. I drove that car to Mammoth Mountain bunch of times, which is a nice 8-hour drive, because I was a skier, so I had those European ski racks on it that mounted on the back deck lid, and that was my love. I love that car. That was very, very cool. So that was my hot rod Ghia.
Always like those Carmen Ghias. Always liked them.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I got a paint question to run by you guys, just because when we're talking about paint, it just spurned it. Since my car is finally being painted, and I'm very stressed about this because now I got to worry about it.
Oh, you know what? You're going to become that don't touch my car guy.
It's going to stay in the garage. The car is going to be the color is a 76 Pontiac Anniversary Gold. It's a real nice gold metallic. It's almost like a butterscotchy color.
Yeah, with metallic, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
So it only came in that year. It only came on a Grand Prix and a Trans Am. It was the anniversary color. Mm-hmm. So what I planned on doing was replicating just the factory pinstripes that were on the car originally. There were 2 stripes down the side of the body, fenders brought to the quarter panel. It might have been a deal install thing, I don't know, but I was going to do that again just to keep it simple and break up the color. And then I was thinking this, and I don't know, I got to do some tests. The drum set I bought is gold sparkle. It's a Ludwig gold sparkle kit, so it's that heavy metal flake gold. I'm thinking, what about widen the pinstripes a little and spray inside the pinstripes with the gold sparkle, and then the black would separate it. I don't know if it would get lost or if it would actually work. So,
well,
that today, by the way,
you could would there be a way to do a test strip and like stick it on the car so you could, before you did the whole thing?
I think that'd be the way to do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just to make sure you love it.
You would hate to commit to that and it doesn't look good.
Right. Right.
Yeah. That'd be a big commitment, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, Ray, here's what you got to do about being stressed about people touching the car and stuff. Repaint it.
Repaint. Yeah. Keep it in primer.
No, listen, you've been riding with primer. I mean, hey, you throw paint on it. We got painters in the family here.
I know.
We'll get to, you know what I mean? So don't stress about it.
Here's the problem with that. I'm a victim of that trap because my Porsche is all original. And it's the way it came from the factory, and it's one of only 3 ever painted in this color. And it's got every option from the factory. And it's become, and I've talked to people about this before, that these cars, if they're too perfect, they become a trap, and you don't use them. You don't love them. And it's kind of done that for me. It's like every time I take it for a drive, my wife says, "Don't drive it. It's worth too much money. If somebody hits you, all these people texting and not paying attention." And it's a bit of a problem.
I was just watching an episode of barn find hunter with Tom Cotter, because we may have him on the show this Sunday.
Oh, really? He's cool. I've been on my show 3 times now.
Local guy. He's from Long Island, where I'm from. So we have a land connection. But anyway, he visited a guy who had a bunch of older cars and a bunch of Porsches, and he has a Speedster that he's had since, I think, for 30 years.
Or the old Speedster.
The 356, yeah. And he explained that this car was never really perfect. The paint job was okay, and he raced it. The roll bar is from the 60s. And he said, but it was presentable. And he said, in the last 10 years, the paint job really kind of hit the wall and started to degrade. He said, but you know what it did? It freed me. He says, because now I really don't care. And I got it. It just resonated with me so true.
Well, you remember that very expensive Speedster, the blue one that Jerry Seinfeld bought?
Oh, yeah.
That was an old original car. And he talked about that because Jerry can buy whatever he wants, right? I mean, he's like Jay Leno. Jay used to say, I restore a car to 100 point, drive it down to 50 and restore it back to 100.
There you go.
Well, you can do that if you're Jay Leno and you have a lot of money in the bank. Jerry Seinfeld's the same way, but he said, I'm not afraid to drive this car like I am all my perfectly restored cars because it's already got, I don't call them rock chips. I call them memory marks. My son taught me that, not fret over a rock chip. He goes, Dad, you can remember the day you got that rock chip was the day we took a ride in the car. And to this day, my wife has a chip in her windshield that we got taking my son to the state final track championships. And she won't let me replace her windshield because she said that reminds me of that day. I don't want to forget that memory. It's a memory mark, right? So there's a little tip for you listeners. Don't be Mark Greene. Don't fret over this stuff. Life's short. Tomorrow you can get hit by a bus or a bird falls on your head or something.
That's true.
A large bird.
So Ray, listen, you're getting it painted now. So if something happens, get it painted again. I mean,
there you go.
I know it's easier said than done because paint is expensive and everything like that. But even still, man, me, I don't care, man. I'll just enjoy the car. I'll just drive the wheels off and you said, build it back up. And, I don't even care about paint, man. Just drive it.
That's the problem with an original car.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's only original once. And once you paint it, any panel, all of a sudden, it's not original.
That's the ironic thing about my car. I've never been a paint guy. My cars have to run and be mechanically right. That's my thing. I don't really care about the paint or the looks. You see my Fiat, you'll know what I mean. But anyway, the Pontiac, ironically, I've owned it since 75, most of its life. And it just had the original paint taken off it. The car had never been repainted in its whole life.
Wow.
So, the guys in the body shop looked at it, said it sat for a while, and they said, they were really giving me hell over it. And I said, no, this car's not going to be hard. It doesn't have a lot of rust, and it doesn't have like 10 repaints on it. Right. And after they got into it, they told me, they said, you're right. This car is so easy to work on, because we're not stripping a half-inch of paint.
What kind of Fiat do you have?
Spider, a 124 Spider.
A 124 Spider. Okay. Yeah. When I was a little kid, my dad bought a crazy car, Renault Dauphine. And goofy car. I mean, totally goofy car and kind of a crummy car, but it was kind of fun. I mean, he was a little kid. And that was after he had a 1949 MGTC, which was really fun if you're a little kid. Yeah. Slow as a slug, but and drives like this,
one of those early foreign cars that was in my family. My older brother had it. I didn't even know what the hell it was until years later. He had a Hillman.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if it was a Minx or what. I remember the seat retracted, But he had I don't know even where the hell he got it from, but I was probably about 6 or 7 when he had that car.
Right. Yeah. Well, the MG was fun because it was right-hand drive, and my dad had an extra steering wheel that he would give me. So I'd sit in the left and I'd pretend like I was steering. And we'd pull up next to people and they'd look down at that little car and go, why is that kid driving that car? I mean, I was like 5 years old, 6 years old. I was a little guy.
He should have mounted a dummy steering shaft. That would have been a real kick.
That would have been real fun. Yeah. And the other fun thing is when my mom rode with us, if you know an MGTC, there's a little flat shelf behind the seats. And it was a place to put luggage, but it was only about that deep. So my sister and I would ride back there and our heads would literally be higher than our parents' heads. So my dad he went to a surplus store and bought us those old leather flying helmets with goggles.
Yeah.
So we didn't get bugs and rocks in our eyes. And I remember if I leaned over the side, I could touch the tire.
Uh-huh.
And
Wow.
I only did that once.
That
You don't
once.
do. That's why I still don't have fingerprints on this hand. Yeah. You
Right.
only touch a spinning tire once. Luckily, I couldn't reach down and get it into the spokes. But
Yeah.
that car's always stuck with me.
Was that movie Johnny Dangerously? Yeah, I touched a spinning tire once.
Once.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
It's like touching something super hot on the stove. You hopefully only do that one time. So yeah, absolutely, for sure. So very fun. But definitely, Ray, got to have you on the show.
Sure.
So we can have a little bit of fun. And then of course I'm going to be interviewing Lewis next week, I believe. And then that'll go up later in May. And of course, Terry's already a star on Cars. Yeah. So
1530.
Guest number 1530.
1530.
You know, it's funny because I come across people all the time at car events who've been guests, and they always say, I'm number 772, or, you know, whatever that is. So it's kind of fun when people identify by those numbers.
I think nobody's on 1532, 1533.
Oh, yeah. It's getting hard to remember all the people. Sometimes people say, if you had so-and-so on your show, and I have to go, oh my gosh, I got to think back. But, you know, I mentioned early on when I was talking to Lewis about this is what's amazing to me is some of the stories.
You need a logbook for every show.
Oh, I do. Mine's in my computer, though. I don't do that old analog stuff like
Guess
you.
what? Mine's in a computer too, but I like an analog backup.
Do you? Okay. Very good. Yeah. Well, you can go to my website and you can search anybody, search a name, just put it in the search bar and all those people will pop up. So.
What is your website, Mark? What's the URL?
Easy. carsyeah.com.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Is that backwards on your screen like it is?
No.
Okay. Yeah, carsyeah.com. And you can find Cars Yeah on any mobile app. I'm on pretty much all of them out there nowadays. So just go to your mobile device and type in Cars Yeah podcast. You'll find it. And then also the new Buy, Sell, Hold podcast I'm doing with Keith Martin. And that one's out there as well. It's only once a week. I think we're up to guest 11 now, something like that. But some really interesting people who have careers in the area of buying, collecting cars. So these are dealers or auction houses, or in the case of some of them, they're high-end collectors, people that have very nice collections. A guest coming up is John Shirley, who actually owns a GTO, a real GTO, Ferrari GTO.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, it's the only white one.
Orange
GTO. Yeah. And you know what the great thing about John is? He drives all of his cars. I mean, he's got some insane cars. I've known him ever since I moved up here, and he drives his cars. He raced that Ferrari. He's raced all of his collector cars. He's got cars that have won Pebble Beach, 3 cars. He's got a beautiful 375 Ferrari that was custom built by Scaglietti for Ferrari for Ingmar Bergman. It was a gift by Rossellini, the director, gave it to her. She was his mistress. Ooh. I guess that's okay to let that secret out now. Those Italians and kind of like the French, right? So he gave that car to her as a gift. It's a beautiful one-off body, and that won Pebble about 4 years ago. It was the first post-war car that had won Pebble in decades. Silver, beautiful car.
Wow.
Yeah, John's got some cool stuff. Yeah.
Have you had Wayne Greene on?
Yeah, I have. You know, I met Wayne years ago, and he called me once and he said, "Hey, I'd love to be on your show. I listen to your show in the mornings when I'm on my bicycle, exercising my indoor bicycle." And he was a great show. We become friends. And he's the one, when I ventured into television, I called him and said, "What am I about to step into?" And he gave me some incredible advice, which I took that advice, and that helped me produce the first year show. And I own the show. It's not done by another producer or a network. It's all mine. So Wayne's a great guy. And last time I ran into Wayne was probably Pebble last summer. He's always, at Pebble Beach and so forth. And I think I'm not sure if he was at Rennsport or not. I don't know if any of you guys ever been to Rennsport, if you're Porsche guys. Yeah, it's an incredible event. And I got to go there and I met John Oates. Have you heard of that band called Hall & Oates?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe once or twice.
Private. Exactly. So I didn't know he was a car guy. And I'll tell you a funny story. I walked up to Rod Emery. Rod builds outlaw Porsche 356s, some of the best in the world. And there was a car sitting there. And I said, "What is this?" He goes, "Well, I just built it for a client. In fact, he's going to see it for the first time today. He's coming over here. I'll introduce you. Okay. So he's telling me all about this build. It's got all this trick stuff. It's like a hot rod 356. Incredible paint, engine, tranny. I mean, Rod Emery does some insane stuff. And so this guy walks up and he goes, oh, here's John. And I go, hey, John. And we meet each other. And Rod said, I've got to go do something. John, why don't you tell Mark about your car? So we're standing there talking, and I'm kind of noticing around all these people taking pictures of us. I'm like, why are all these people taking pictures of us? This is kind of weird. And I just, I kind of was seeing this going on. And so he's telling me all about it. He goes, why don't you sit in it? So I'm sitting in the car and we're talking, and 2 car guys, right? Mm-hmm. So Rod comes back and he goes, oh, you guys learned about the car? And I said, yeah. And he said, were you a fan of John's music? And I, stupid me, I said, are you in the music industry? Wow. Oh. And he goes, yeah, kind of a little bit. And Rod starts laughing. And Chris Brewer, who's the guy that works with Bill Warner at the Amelia Island Concours, he was standing there and he just cracked up. And he goes, Mark, catch a clue, dude. John Oates, that little band, Hall & Oates. I mean, I felt like I was this big.
Don't feel bad because he wasn't the highlighter of that group. I mean, like, they both played a pivotal part, but Hall was the face that knew.
Yeah, well, and here's
only 2 of them, dude. Come on.
Yeah, well, I know.
This was MTV time too.
Terry's trying to cover my ass here a little bit. Thank you, Terry. Somebody's got to love me a little bit here, but I'm going. They were big in the early '80s when I met my wife and was courting my wife to get married. We've been married for 36 years now, so I'm like, oh my gosh, you're the guy, the mustache. That guy last year did 70 concerts and he's 70 years old.
Really?
He's still doing concerts today. He's kicking ass. And I had him on my show. You can go back. He was an awesome guest. And he told me some incredible stories about how he lost his entire fortune. His money was mismanaged by a manager who totally blew all of his cash. His wife called him when he was on tour and he shared all this on my show. She said, we're out of money. We can't make our mortgage payment. He's like, what are you talking about? We're millionaires. She's like, we have no money.
Wow.
And so his wife then left him. So I guess she was married to him for a different reason. But at any rate, he learned a valuable lesson and he had to sell all of his cars. And so now he's come back, obviously, and he's doing well and married to the love of his life and is a car guy for sure. But he was riding with his manager through LA and saw the first Porsche 911 Turbo on a showroom floor. And they turned around and went back and he told his manager, I want that car. And so they went inside and the manager said, my client here wants the car. And he goes, well, that car's sold. I can't sell it to you. And he goes, anything can be sold. So they went in the back and did a deal and they came out and he said, John, the car's yours. Oh, cool. And John said, well, who was it sold to? And he goes, some other singer. We'll get him another car. And he goes, another singer. Who is that? He goes, his name's Rod Stewart, I think. So John Oates stole Rod Stewart's turbo out from underneath him.
Okay. Oh, no.
Yeah. Funny story, right? So,
yeah.
Who'd have thought? But he's a really nice guy. I still communicate with him. We do texting and stuff, and he loves Porsches and cars. He raced for quite a bit too. He was quite a prolific racer, which I didn't know about that with him. So yeah. So you never know what you're gonna get when you start talking to people, right? And asking them really good questions, right, Ray?
That's very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So fun stories, but you can go back and find that on my website. All my past guests are there. You could listen for days and days and days. 1,500 shows.
Yeah, I was gonna say at least 1,500 days worth.
Yeah. I actually had a guy a while back that emailed me and he said, my goal is to listen to all your shows. I just found out about you. This was last year. And about every couple months, he goes, I'm almost there. He goes, can you just stop? I can't. He goes, like, you're the Energizer Bunny. I can't keep up with you. So
the weekend, you got to catch up.
Catching up.
Yeah. So I go, nope, sorry, not going to stop. You just got to listen faster. Put it on double speed like you can do when you're listening to, podcasts.
I'll put the podcast on at night, like when he's sleeping.
Yeah. Osmosis. Yeah, Ray?
where do you see your show going in the future, Mark? What does that hold for you?
Oh my gosh, you're going to ask a hard question, aren't you?
Because now you're talking to an interviewer. You see, this is what happens.
Hello, I can't. What?
Me.
I can't hear you anymore, Ray. What? Do you? Hello. That's a good question, because when I launched the TV show last year, I never dreamed that would happen. This show has brought me a lot of interesting opportunities. I get hired to be keynote speaker at car events, Concours events, banquets, and things. And I never thought that would happen. I've been hired to teach people how to do a podcast, get them up to speed really fast. So I've done that. The TV show came out of really kind of nowhere. And it's way too long of a story to share here, but I did that, and I'd like to keep that going if I can. It's just a very strange industry, and television is rapidly changing right now. As we all know, cable is dying, basically. Streaming. So, but people say, well, you can just stream it on YouTube. Well, you got to produce it. And I have a crew of 6 people that I fly all over the country. That's kind of expensive. I used to have a private jet, but it was only this big when I was a little kid. So I call the airport and say, when's my jet going to be ready? And they say, stop calling. You don't have a jet. Go away. You're not Jay Leno. So I would like to expand back into that if I can. I'm working on it. That would be fun, because I found that really interesting. It's the same platform. I take people behind the garage door in people's businesses. So, and it was fairly well received, even though I had no idea what I was doing. They say I have a face for podcasting, not for television. So I had to kind of, fix that stuff. But I like what I'm doing, because I really like the idea of sharing these stories and giving back to people. So I'm not quite sure. I haven't thought that far down the road. And it's interesting you asked me that question, Ray, because I'm a consummate planner. I'm always looking way, way ahead. And being at Griot's, where we did 17 catalogs a year, I was always having to think 6 months ahead, not only in product that we were selling, because we'd be doing Christmas at summertime, but for cars, as a brand, I haven't thought that far ahead. Now you're going to make me do that, aren't you? Dang it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe when I'm on your show, I'll have a better answer for you. I have, okay. I'm getting up. I get up super early, 5:30 in the morning. I'm working at 6. I work all day long till 6. I eat dinner and I go back to work. But what I'm doing is fun. I don't, my mom always says, you're working too hard. You got to slow down. And I'm like, what else am I going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, I like to read. So I take time to do that. And I interview a lot of authors, and I give away a lot of books to people that subscribe. You can go to my website and subscribe, and you can have a chance to win a book. Yeah. But trying to keep up with, here's a cool one. I just got this.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Yeah. An incredible book by Rinzi Mills. He's going to be on my show. The autobiography of this actual Cobra, which is cool. Peter Brock is a friend of mine, and he's been on my show a couple times. And I got to spend an evening with Peter at his home in Las Vegas. And we were sitting there, and we were having a drink by the pool overlooking the Las Vegas city lights. And I'm thinking, again, how did I get here? And he's telling me stories about Carroll Shelby, and when he was designing the Daytona Coupe for racing, and the battles and how they were trying to put that together, and how he designed this whole car. And then they had 2 cars built in Italy so they could have them over there and get them going. And when he got over there, they had changed a bunch of stuff. And he's like, why did you change this? And the Italian said, well, we didn't like the way it looked. So we decided to change. And have a Chianti, relax. And he's like, no, you don't understand. I designed this car so it could go a certain speed. And it freaked him out. So they had to put these little winglets on the A-pillar of the window, and, the gurney flap on the back, because they had changed his design so it, quote unquote, would look better.
Yeah.
And I'm, again, we all get to do this. I get to spend time with you guys this evening. What else would I be doing right now? It's just, we're all blessed that we get to be in this automotive world, because there's just so many cool people.
Well,
it really is.
With that very poignant and eloquent answer in mind, I got to tell you, we're all easygoing guys. I accept a 3-word answer to that question, which is, I don't know. I'm fine with that.
I don't have 3-word answers, as you can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a great question. And it's a question I think I'll pose this to all the viewers out there today, all the nice people posting here. That's pretty fun. Is I encourage all of you to think about that. Is really, what do you want to do with your life? And this pandemic has set a tone for a lot of us to help us all realize that life is important and it's short and it's fleeting, and you need to do something fun. Because as my friend I used to race with, the neurosurgeon Bill, used to say, you could wake up this morning and step off a curve and fall and hit your head and you'd be on my operating table.
Yeah.
So do what you love and find a way to figure out how to wrap it into your life, because you shouldn't go through any day waking up not excited about spending your day doing stuff, right?
True.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, So answer that question to Ray when he asked you better than I did.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I tell my kids this. I've told them that through the years. It's always good to strive and want more and to want to do better. That's the nature of things. I said, but there's nothing wrong with being happy with what you have, because you have it a lot better than a lot of other people do. And it's hard to understand that for all of us, but
you just hit on something that's incredibly important. Because I get invited to be a keynote speaker, I have to figure out what to talk about other than myself, which nobody wants to know about that. So I talk about what I've learned after interviewing 1,500 people. And you just said it right there, Ray. One of the things I've learned is that you can become happy at any moment if you just stop and realize what you're grateful for. Yeah. And it could be the fact that you woke up alive. My dad used to say, if I woke up on the top side of the dirt, it's going to be a great day.
Yes, sir.
And so anytime, I always tell people this, anytime you're frustrated or angry about something, stop and tell yourself, what am I grateful for right now? My good health. In the case of Terry, my good looks. There you go. Just do that and you will instantly change your mindset. You'll have a paradigm shift and you'll actually stand a little taller. You'll feel a little bit better about yourself. But here's the other secret that I'm going to give away to everybody watching right now. And this is a secret that I've learned from every guest. Terry's done it. Ray, you do it. Lewis has figured out how to do it. I do it every day. If you can figure out a way to help others, you will make yourself happy. And it's a cliche, but most people don't figure that out until later in life.
And one of my good friends owns a junkyard nearby, and I spent some time with him a while ago when we rekindled the friendship. And he used a term about 4 or 5 years ago that I hadn't heard before, and he explained to me what it meant, and it's become kind of the impetus of my life these days. Pay it forward.
Yeah.
And now when I've always worked with younger people, because part of my job is, students, they're all young. And the shop I work at is my friend's son runs that shop. So he's a quarter of my age, but he's my boss. And that's fine. I'm cool with that because we teach each other things. And he says to me, how come, you don't have a problem, in this? Because other guys do, they just look at me as the kid. I'm like, yeah, because they know you as the kid. I know you. I look at you as a peer, as an equal. Right. I said, until you prove that you're not. And I get to teach him things. And it's great because he's open to it and he teaches me things. And I said, it's the circle. It's like, it sounds kind of goofy, but like the circle of life. It's like, you can learn from almost any situation. And if you're not open to it, you're not going to do it.
Exactly.
I encourage all my listeners to go back and listen to a guest I had on Cars Yeah. His name is Tim Medvets. Tim Medvets. I learned about him on watching a Discovery show about climbing Mount Everest. And he climbed Mount Everest. And he was a motorcycle builder to the stars back in the day. He dated Cher for 4 years. They were going to get married.
Must have been where I heard the name.
The guy was a Hell's Angel. He was a very tough motorcycle chopper guy, somebody you did not want to mess with. And he ended up getting hit by a car on his bike, almost died, almost lost his leg and his foot, and had to go through years of recovery. And during that time, he became addicted to pain pills, and opioids and alcohol, because he was trying to numb the frustration he had in his life that he couldn't walk anymore. He couldn't ride motorcycles. He was very depressed and even thought of taking his own life. And he came upon a guy, and I want to give away the whole story because you really need to go and listen to his show. But he met a guy who taught him, again, the secret to life. And he said, Tim, you need to find a reason to live, a goal to set, a big, hairy, audacious goal, and you need to figure out a way to help other people. And so he started a program where he helps veterans who've lost limbs learn how to climb the mountains. And he took the first gentleman who had no legs to the top of Mount Everest. Think about that.
Wow.
Yeah. And here's the secret that he said when he talked to me. He said, when I discovered that my life was no longer the Tim show, all about me, it was about helping others, I finally became happy. And I never knew my whole life how unhappy I was. Even when I was building choppers for stars and making tons of money and dating Cher and going to Hollywood parties, and I thought I'd made it. I mean, I'm like the king. But he said I wasn't happy because he wasn't helping others. It was the Tim show. And I love sharing that story because it's a great lesson for all of us that when we can help others in some way, we truly become whole as a human being. It's true.
If I can add a little codicil to that, I came across this statement years ago that I had to save. I wrote it down because and I love to share it. And it's just 2 sentences. It says, the purpose of life is to discover your true gift. The meaning of life is to give it away.
There you go. That you said it much more eloquently than I did. That was perfect.
I didn't write it. I just, I just whoever wrote it was a wiser man than I.
Well, but you shared it, so you just gave away the secret.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, and that is the secret to happiness, and I can prove it after talking to 1,500 people. I mean, Terry, you figured it out. You go on YouTube and you share how to do things with people, and Lewis by putting this together with us right now. So we can share with others and share some of our insights, and hopefully some of these great folks that are spending their Friday evening. Or is it Friday or is it Thursday? Thursday. What day is it? They're all aren't they becoming all the same?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a meeting with a guy today that never called me, and I called him and said, we're supposed to meet. And he goes, well, isn't it Friday? And I'm like, no, it's Thursday. It's like, I don't even know what day it is anymore. Yeah. So but it's a great lesson for everybody, and appreciate that. I'm going to write that one down.
That's a good one.
What I've found with putting this plan of traffic together, I'm getting enjoyment of other people connecting with other people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Nelson Gill. He's one of our guys that's always in the chat room, but he's impacted so many people that's came through this show.
Yes.
From meeting them on this show. So, it's like really exciting seeing people. It's just rolling.
Right. Yeah. I love the name of it, by the way, Playing in Traffic. Yeah. In fact, I told my mom, I said, hey, you can watch me tonight. Hope if you're watching, Mom, hi. And I said, well, tonight I'm going to go play in traffic. And she's like, what? I told you not to do that as a kid.
Right.
Yeah. So, it's great what you're doing here. So I really appreciate it. And,
I appreciate you coming on.
I'm wondering if, I'm looking at all these comments of people on the side. I think you mentioned, are you going to let people ask us any questions? Is that part of your deal here?
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions for Mark? And I'm going to jump over to.
Jim says, I make my living playing in traffic. I'm wondering what Jim does.
He's a traffic cone.
A traffic cone.
A cone.
Not a cone head. To go back to Saturday Night Live, I think it was something like that. Right. So, yeah. He says he's been that. He's been a traffic cone. So, yeah. I have a traffic cone that I hit when I was racing once that I totally destroyed. And for fun, my friends went and got it out of the trash, and they painted a face on it that was like a sad face and, saying, Mark destroyed me. So it said in my office. Yeah, it said for a while. So electronic tolling. Okay. That's what he's doing. So he's the guy that grabs our money out of our pockets.
Yeah.
He's like a tax collector.
Only when he's not electronically trolling.
Yeah. I know. I live in Gig Harbor, where I drive over this bridge called the Narrows Bridge, and they collect a toll, and they do it automatically. And I always, when I drive under that thing, feel like my wallet lifts out of my pocket for a little bit. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, we have a Narrows Bridge too called the Verrazano.
Oh, okay.
It's like $18 now to go over that bridge.
Yeah.
Listen,
Okay.
try going across it in a semi.
Oh gosh, yeah. So I see a question here from Josh Ellensworth for Mark. Most interesting interview. Holy cow. Jim's back with $94. He's taking all our money away tonight. Josh, that's a very difficult question to answer because it's like a child. You don't want to say you have a favorite, but I will tell you a real quick one. I've had some guests on the show that have said things to me that I had no idea were coming. And one of them was from a guest of mine. And sadly, we lost her last year at a very young age, Nicole Mcguire. And Barry Mcguire's daughter. And those of you in the car world and the Concours world know what Nicole was doing, raising money to help kids who were wayward. And she had a very challenging marriage with a very abusive husband. She was very embarrassed by it, so she wasn't telling anybody, and it was just eating her up. And in her interview with me, and I didn't know this about her, she said, I decided to take my own life.
Wow.
And so when you're interviewing somebody on a car show like Cars Yeah, and it's all upbeat and they're talking about cars and somebody says that to you, as an interviewer, Ray, you know, it's like, whoa, where are we going here? And she said, would you mind me telling my story? And I said, go ahead. This is your show.
I guess not.
Yeah. I mean, we're there now. You've opened the door. And I don't want to give it away. I want people to go listen to her story because Nicole's story is very important. An important lesson, if you're in an abusive relationship, especially if you're a woman, how important it is to get out and what it can lead to. And also, if you're in a position in life where you think you need to take your own life, there is another alternative. There's another way. And thank God she discovered another way. She went to buy illegal drugs to overdose on them and was busted in a DEA sting.
Oh, wow.
Talk about luck.
Wow.
Yeah.
And ended up in jail. And in there, she met somebody that gave her another reason to be alive and a way out. And she did that. And she took that horrible part of her life and transitioned it into creating a car show that raises money to help kids who have drug addiction, runaway, abused kids to find a reason to live. So she turned that around. And I won't say it was my favorite show, but it was one of the most moving shows that I've ever had because I didn't see it was coming. And it's a show that I've still to this day get emails from people saying, thank you for having that up. And I ran into Barry, her father, Barry Mcguire, the guy, the wax guy, right? The wax king, who last summer came up to me and said, thank you for that show. That's one of the only recordings we have of our daughter's voice, which is really tremendous. And it made me think about something that I want to share with everybody. We have these wonderful little devices now, right? That you notice mine is a car.
Yeah.
That you can record things on. And the only recording I have of my father, I mentioned earlier, I lost him 3 years ago, are a couple voicemails on my phone. That's all I have. And I kind of shame myself a little bit that I never interviewed my father, even just for myself. My dad wasn't really a car guy. He was when he was younger, but he was an architect and an artist. And I would encourage everyone out there, if you have somebody important in your life, a spouse, a grandparent, a child, record. These phones have a recording mechanism. It's very easy to use. Record it and save it.
Yeah.
Put it in a file because you will someday go back and cry a little, smile a little, and listen to that recording and say, man, I'm glad Mark gave me that idea. Because
Mark, if I could add to that, that's something I did a number of times. And the first time was purely almost by accident. I interviewed people. I had recordings of them and then they passed. And sometimes it was someone's child. And what I did, I went on a limb and I clipped that out and burned it on a CD and I sent it to them. And I said, I let them know what this was because, and every single person has always said to me, you know how important that is to me? And I understand it's like a time capsule. And I said, I felt so good that I was able to provide that.
Yeah.
And I really didn't do anything, but it was just, I had no one else could have done it. I had to do it.
You had to do it. Yeah, it's important. When I shot that TV show with Sarah DeCarmen, she gave me a big hug and she said, "Thank you. That show you did with my husband is the only recording that the girls have of their dad's voice."
Yeah.
And the girls were young when they lost their dad. So I'd encourage everybody to do that. And you know what's fun about it, especially with a grandparent, because they have a whole nother perspective on life, is have them talk about their history, their life, their childhood, what it was like. Yeah. My grandparents were farmers in Texas. That was the most foreign thing to me. I grew up on the beach in California as a surfer. And I remember going to California or to Texas very rarely in our Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser. Remember those? With the windows on the top? Yeah. And it was like, yeah, it was like going to Mars, because a farm in northern Texas in the plains. And thanks to my cousin Thad, who convinced me it was okay to go into a pen and try to pat a bull on the nose. That was a bad idea. Yeah. Dumb city slicker right here. Yeah. Right. So I'd encourage people to do that, because I lost last year 8 of my past guests. We lost last year. Jesse Combs was one of them.
Yeah. Terry, you have it. Bruce, you have it. I have a hard drive with, I've been doing my show 20 years, 19 years. So I realized the gravity of what's on that hard drive, and all the stuff that's in there. I've always looked at it as my own living legacy. I said, someday maybe my kids will listen to it. But there's other people in there. There's many many more people in there than I can imagine.
Yeah. So that's another good. Hopefully, we're giving away some pretty good life tips tonight, aren't we?
Yeah. Right. See, that's what's nice about this show. It goes from toilet paper to life experiences. I mean, you never know what's going to fly out. That's live.
One of our viewers here, John Day, I make a living journal every year. That's an awesome idea. Journaling, writing. Yeah. And again, with these computers we have now, if you want to do it audio file, you can do that. And most computers come with free GarageBand or Audacity, or you can record anything and do whatever you want. So I think that's a great idea, John. Definitely something you should do. My kids both learned to journal very young, and we got stacks of books from them that are fun to sit down and read from when they're in junior high. And, it's kind of like, you feel almost like you're intruding, like reading a diary a little bit, but
through the years, my wife likes to clean up a lot. And as the kids were getting older and going through school, at the end of the year, I'd always see this. I'm a garbage picker. I pick my own garbage. I do, because I would take things out, like have a journal or, a diary, and you know what? We don't need it. They clean their room, threw it out. I pick it out and I put it down here in my man cave. And I've given them some of that stuff years later, and like, oh my God, I forgot all about it. And you just to sit back and watch their faces go through what they wrote. Yeah. That, wasn't that long ago, but in a kid's life, it's every year is a lot. And you say, that's why that shouldn't be in the garbage. That's your legacy. You got to hang on to that.
It is,
That's exactly what I was going to say, because I don't know if we know it, but we're creating legacies for, like, the little boy does over here. When he's a granddad, he's going to be able to look back and be like, let's look at great granddad Terry, doing the car thing,
Yeah, that crazy garage guy.
They're going to be back the footage, and you're right about that, and like you said, take the time out, talk to your parents or your brother or sister, whatever, because tomorrow's not promised to anyone.
Yeah, no, not at all. So it's a wonderful thing to do. I was saying to my wife the other day, we interviewed each other when we were having our first child. We have 2 beautiful children, and we had those old Super 8 cameras. Remember those things? And I need to get those transferred to hey, you're as old as us, Lewis. Come on. I don't remember those. And so I need to get them transferred to digital so I can show them to my kids, and also the birth of my children. The fact that, they can watch their own birth and see them being held in, their parents' arms. And my daughter always laughs when I talk about this. I got to be the first one to wash her hair when she was born. And I just never forget that, looking down at her and washing her hair and going, oh my gosh, I'm a dad. What am I going to do? Yeah. It's like,
it came up last summer, and one of my older daughter, she was, Dad, it was a different conversation, and the spark went off in her head, and she goes, remember when you used to brush my hair? She had long hair, and I would sit there and just brush it for about an hour. And I had the pictures on my cell phone. And I said, like this? She goes, send me those pictures. I got to have that. I'm like, yeah.
I know. Easter
was good for me as it was for you.
We just had Easter, and I found a picture of, I had a Garton Cadillac, old Garton Cadillac from the 50s. It was my uncle's car. He gave it to me when I was a little boy, and I have a picture of my sister sitting in it. I'm sitting on the fender, and there's an Easter basket on the front of the car. And I sent it to my sister. I said, hey, you remember this? And it's like, oh my gosh, where did you get that? And I found an old picture that I just snapped and took. So yeah, but the audio files, and you think about how kids' lives are being documented right now. Like none other time, because I don't have a lot of pictures of me as a little kid.
Why, don't you? The reason is because I don't have a lot of pictures of me, because when we were growing up, you had to go to a thing called the photomat.
It was the hassle getting pictures. Yeah.
Exactly. You had to go and get a 24 exposure, and you put it in your little Kodak camera, and that thing was maybe $12.
Oh, I know.
Take the pictures, and then you would have to go to photomat, and you have 24 exposures, maybe 18 would come out.
Yeah.
And again, you have to hope and pray that picture is good.
Yeah.
Years when I started the radio show, my iteration was I started in 2004. There were two other hosts, and the one guy was a real motor mouth. He really could talk, and I was constantly fighting for time with him as a co-host. And one day I just happened to bring in a photo album, and he sat there and just looked through it. We started the show, and we're talking about the first item, and I expected him to jump in, and he didn't. I looked over, he was buried. So I said, I figured out how to keep him quiet. I just kept bringing in photo albums. And he said to me, he says, these are great. He says, you documented your life. I said, I've always been a photographer and a photo buff. It's one of my hobbies.
Right.
He says, I don't have any pictures from when I was young. He says, but I tell you what, you could put me in any one of these pictures. You did the same thing I did. I'm like, we all did the same thing.
Yeah, that's the fun. It's like Stingray bikes and putting sissy bars on them, banana seats, and ape hanger steering wheels. Yeah. I mean, all the customs, the long forks and stuff.
Yeah,
did
that.
Yeah, all that kind of fun stuff. So
I didn't like the Springer fork. I did not like. You couldn't go fast with that thing.
You're right. Yeah, I didn't
fast.
Yeah, I got
slow and low.
I got one of those orange crates, Schwinn orange crates. I had a paper route, so saved up for that, and then somebody stole it, so I never saw it again. But it had that springy front end. And you're right; it was kind of weird.
It was weird. I got rid of mine, and I put a regular blue, because I had this thing. I didn't have this. See, there was a couple of them where I got mine used. I bought mine used, and
you made one.
I noticed that it had the one bar that went up, but then right up, where the shifter was. But then there was one that had two little bars that went. I don't know if that was a different type of bike. It was it was still a crate, but you had one that had a single bar, and you had I guess a smaller one that had the two. It had the same big bar, and then had two smaller ones on the side.
That's what I had, the two small ones.
I know Raleigh made one. It may have not have been a Schwinn.
Yeah, it could have been a Huffy. Huffy made one.
I know Raleigh did. We were, I guess, living out in the poorer neighborhood. We couldn't afford any of that kind of stuff. So what we used to do is we would take the forks off a donor bike and just hacksaw them off.
Oh, yeah.
close up the axle end on the bike we were working on. Pound those forks over the ones on our bike, so it made a longer extended front end. And then you put the wheel on it.
Yeah.
Except now you always got to push the because now we're cruising down the street. It was cool. And one of the things you used to do is go up the driveway, the curb cut, and kind of use this little ramp to launch yourself off into the street.
Oh yeah.
So I did that a couple times with this one bike and went up, and the wheel and those wheels went one way. The bike came down, and where I went. I should have had the girl's bike.
Well, that's what I was seeing here. One of our watchers, Josh, was talking about that. Sometimes they would come off.
Yeah.
And then Chassis John, he had a pea picker. I remember. Lucky him. Yeah. I remember those. Yeah. They were fun. They were fun.
The cool thing was, talking about paying it forward, that incident, and then later on when we started with putting motors on with mini bikes, there was a shop in town called Curtis Automotive. And I don't know who the guy was, but he was pretty benevolent. We would bring stuff down to him and ask him, "Mister, could you weld this for us?" Like, what we had our paper money, and he would always do it and never charge us.
Oh, nice.
Which was cool. And he did it a couple times, and even years later, when I was driving, I brought him an engine block. It was a good block, and the cast iron had cracked, and he actually, he welded it. He gas welded it. And then he was in business for years later, and finally went out. But maybe that's where that seed came about. Paying it forward, helping out.
Yeah, doing nice things for people.
I don't know,
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, we all had those, times, and I've had a lot of people on my shows that are kids that hung around shops, and people let them hang around and let them do things so they could learn stuff.
Right.
And it got that spark going in their life that they could move forward. Any of you guys get into skateboarding?
Yeah,
a little bit.
No,
a little bit.
Yeah, never enough to be good.
Yeah, you guys are on the East Coast. You got to be, SoCal to be a skate. I was big time.
I was doing wheelies all over the place.
Wheelies. Yeah.
There you go.
I could never get the wheelie down very well. I had a friend.
Find the sweet spot. Once you find the sweet spot, I was to the point where, like with that Stingray, I had the shifter right there. I couldn't. When I felt myself losing it, I would shift to a lower gear with my knee.
Oh, cheap.
And shift,
you're like my friend Bobby Schmidt, who could do anything physical. I mean, he could ride all the way from his house to school in junior high on his back tire. I'm like,
on the Stingray, it's easy. I've seen kids do it on 26-inch full-size bikes, and that's hard. That is hard to do.
Yeah. No, I just was not very good at that. It's the same as spinning a ball on my finger. I couldn't do it.
Metal Lock Lemon.
Yeah. Well, there's another one we recently
I think about a month ago.
Yeah, just recently. Saw him as a kid. What, Terry?
I think it was Curly who died.
Was it Curly?
Curly?
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, Metal Lock. Yeah, I used to love the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yeah.
Cartoon.
The original. Yeah, the cartoon was good too.
Yeah. No, my dad took me to see them to play in San Diego at the stadium.
Wow.
Yeah. That was. In fact, I got to go see Evel Knievel jump over school buses.
Wow.
Where I lived, if we drove up the freeway towards LA, was Orange County. Back when Orange County was orange fields. There was no houses or anything there. And there was the Orange County drag strip there, Raceway, right off the freeway. And he would take me up there and we watched the drag strips. And one night, Evel Knievel was there jumping over school buses. Wow. And I remember you could buy a picture and he would sign it for you. I still have it. And when I got home, I begged my mom to make me an Evel Knievel cape. So I could go, and all my friends, I said, okay, we got to set up some trash barrels and get some plywood planks and try to jump out. Yeah, I didn't make it. No,
well, they did it, so it's all right.
That man was jumping. Well, he was jumping Harley Davidsons, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, with no suspension almost.
No travel whatsoever, man.
He was crazy. Yeah, he was nuts. I don't know how he lived as long as he did.
It's amazing.
Yeah, he was an interesting character for sure. But for us little kids back then, he was like,
God, yeah, he was the god. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who had the motorcycle?
What?
Who had the motorcycle?
He had. Yeah, you wind it up and he would jump.
Yeah,
I had it.
Yeah, go flying across the floor. Yeah,
cycle.
Exactly.
They had the car and they had the rocket. I had the rocket.
Wow.
Exactly. So here's a good question for you guys. Do any of you guys have your first Matchbox or Hot Wheels car?
I you know what? I have my Aurora AFX cars.
No, do you?
Oh wow.
Oh yeah. I sold all of mine. I sold all. I got
bought them.
$1,000 for mine.
Yeah, I bought them.
Wow.
I got them over here. They're in this file cabinet over here.
Right over
here. Boxes.
Which one was it, Ray? Tell me. Which car is it?
Oh, the first one, I think the first one I remember was a Chaparral. I had a bunch of them early on, because I have all the versions. I have the early vibrator car. Then I go to the original Auroras with the little tiny tires.
The T-Jets.
Then it went up to AFX. Then it went up to there was G Plus, Magna Traction, the AFX.
G Plus, yeah.
I have more. Yeah. I have some of my originals still.
Here's the question: were you an AFX or Tyco guy?
I had them both, and I like it, but AFX was really my thing.
I have mine too.
See, my parents moved. We moved to Florida when I was a kid. So in between that move, I lost a lot of toys.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so that kind of messed me up. But
I was lucky. I grew up pretty much in the same house all the way through college, And so I still have all my Matchbox. My first one is a Jaguar XKE coupe in red. And I still remember my dad buying that for me in a drugstore as a quarter.
Yeah.
It was like a big deal. It's like, he's going to spend a quarter, buy me that thing. Yeah. And I've still got all of mine. I must have hundreds of them. Yeah. I've just kept them. Again, I always think maybe my kids would want to play with them, but they weren't interested. So
yeah,
maybe I'll have grandkids someday and they'll play with them.
Yeah. They don't want to play that old stuff. They want to play the new stuff. They want to get the new.
Yeah, they want to play computer games. They don't want these stupid little things that don't roll. But
Mark, it's like I've said it on this show many times. I've said it on my own show quite a lot. That I told my wife, I read her the riot because she's watched me bring cylinder heads and engine parts into the house, down the basement, and the car stuff and motorcycle parts and guns, you name it. I mean, we got instruments and I told her, if something befalls me, a terrible fate where I can't do this myself, and you got to get rid of this stuff. Even though I joke about, you and the girls filling the dumpsters, that you don't do that. You call the people who I know, who know each of these things, and you either have them sell it for you, and you cut them in, cut them in on a profit. I said, or give it to them. I said, because I'd rather see a friend have it than the dumpster get it, because if I saved it, it's worth money. And it won't be worth money. So,
well, there's a lot of stuff out there that probably gets tossed away. And I met a guy years ago that found out about a shop that this guy had passed away, and he happened to stop by there, and his wife was having everything thrown away, and there were Porsche engines and some serious stuff. And he's like, you can't throw this away. I mean, she goes, well, you can have it. And he hauled it all away. I mean, the guy had a huge collection of Porsche parts, engine parts, transmissions, some really old valuable stuff. There was a Carrera engine in there from the 50s. Like, those things are worth, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
we'll see in a woman's eyes, that was his mistress. So I don't care about that stuff.
Ooh,
you know what I mean? Get rid of it.
Like that.
You know what I mean?
A little booty.
Well, yeah. And one thing I've learned too, when I lost my dad, he grew up on a farm in Texas. He didn't throw anything away. And when my sister and I were going through all his things, it was overwhelming. I mean, I found cards I made for him when I was in grade school, Father's Day cards, things like that. I mean, it was just kind of gut wrenching, but at the same time, but I came home and said, you know what, I got to clean some stuff out. I don't want my kids to go through that. It's a lot of stuff to go through.
You want to see stacks of them? I have them everywhere. I can't get rid of them. I just can't
Mark,
throw them out.
Mark, did I tell you that Ray, any conversation we start, Ray has it right there next to him.
It's somewhere.
It's somewhere. Yeah, it's somewhere. Well, I'll tell you a funny thing I found out about my dad. He was he wasn't super organized when it came to being tidy, I guess is the way to do it. I mean, he had his own business and did really well, but he would, if he couldn't find a hammer because he didn't ever put it back where it belonged, he'd just go buy another one. So we were cleaning out one of these big areas, and it was just full of tools. And a bunch of his friends came over to help my sister and I. And I said, why did my dad have 12 hammers? What's he doing? If he couldn't find one, he bought another one. Right. And but it's kind of for me, being a pack rat. My wife is not. She grew up in a military family where they moved all the time, and she had to get rid of everything. I've kind of learned that maybe my kids don't want all this stuff, and maybe I should start passing some of it forward. So I gave a lot of things away, sold stuff on eBay, and I kept the things that were important to me. But
I've rationalized that, and I've told younger people who don't get it. I said, guys of my age, I said, we grew up with parents who were World War II and Depression era people. Right. And I know my mom saved everything. She reused everything because she had to. There wasn't enough money to buy new stuff. So you learn to conserve, and the things you had that were valuable, you save. I said, and it trickled down. Whether I'm sure they didn't plan on doing it to us, but most people I talk to in this age group have the same kind of. Well,
and the other thing is they would buy things of quality. They would save up and buy the best they could versus throwaway items or cheap stuff.
No. Right.
We talk a little bit about that right now with what's going on is, maybe we can not buy a lot of cheap stuff from China. We can buy quality made goods, hopefully made here.
It's hard not to sometimes. And I mean, we've had
it's hard to find.
Well, like I say, I come from we're in a repair by replacement society, which I hate because I repair stuff. I'm a tinkerer. I keep old radios and they still work.
Louis, you're right. He's kind of like every.
And that's what I do. I fix stuff. I'm a fix-it guy. But the new stuff, you take that radio apart and I can fix it. If I took something new apart, first of all, if you can get it apart, it's never going to go back together because all the plastic tabs break. You know.
Yeah.
So it was easy to get quality stuff back in the day because it was metal or it was substantial.
Right.
Today, it's a lot harder to do. But I think we need to bring that back. We need manufacturing back in this country.
Louis, Ray's always got a bunch of cool stuff. I want to share. I got a kind of a cool thing here. I'll share.
Oh, cool!
Oh,
That is really cool. I like that.
The paint, the paint bucks you see, like from House of Colors. They have all the cars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The little
there's a name for them. I don't know what it is, but
I bought this at a Rensport thing. It's an old ceramic piece.
ceramic.
Yes.
wow.
Yeah. It's made out of ceramic, and I just thought it was. I love speedsters. I always wanted an old speedster.
Yeah.
They become a bit unobtainium, but I was getting a little jealous. Ray had all the cool stuff. I had to pull something out of my hat.
I'm glad Papa Squirrel just hit on something with tools. It's the same thing where we talk about tools, and there's no middle ground anymore. We have our top tier tools. We have Snap-on, Matco, Mac, the good stuff, and now you have Harbor Freight, which everybody flocks to, and and everybody has a combination of all of it. There's no way about that. But we used to have Craftsman. That was a great. We all started with Craftsman, and a lot of guys. I still have Craftsman stuff. Everybody does.
Yeah.
But it was a viable alternative to spending money on the top tier tool, especially if you didn't need to. And there's no reason to do it if you don't need to. And now that's gone. So now you're forced one way or the other, and it's kind of a shame because
isn't Lowe's selling Craftsman now?
They are, but it's not the same Craftsman.
It's the same. It's not the same. I agree.
I was going to say, I just had a Facebook group I was with the other day ask about screwdrivers. And I sold a lot of tools and sourced a lot of tools when I was at Grio's. And one of the screwdrivers that we love to sell were a company called Weehaw.
I was going to just say Weehaw, yes.
WIHA. I went and I met the people that own that. That was a company started in the Black Forest. Look at him behind. Yeah.
They have it right here.
Oh, my gosh.
I told you. You thought I was kidding, Mark, didn't you?
I have more out in the garage. It's everywhere.
Holy cow. That guy's insane. Man. Yeah. But I like their products. They're very high quality, German made, lots of different options and so forth. So I've always tried to sell good. In fact, we started selling tools at Grio's way back from a company in France called Facome, Facome. Have you ever heard of Facome?
I've seen the name, yeah.
You don't see them here anymore. We were the first company to bring them into the U.S. and sell them. They are incredibly nice. I mean, the best of the best. And we had a lot of people saying, I'm not going to buy a French tool. The French can only make wine, cheese, and love. But they were really, really high quality. I went to their factory. In fact, if you look at the original McLaren F1 streetcar, it came with a set of Facome tools.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a little compartment on the outside. You open up, it's a little kind of almost a triangle, and there's a set of Facome tools in there. I got to go to that factory when they were first making those, and they were sponsoring Renault F1 at the time. So we got to go to the Renault facility where they were building F1 cars. That was insane. And they had all Facome tools. I still have all my old Facome tools. They're great. We had to stop carrying them because they were sold to a company called SK.
Yeah,
which is a much broader brand, not a lower level brand. We also sold USAG, USAG, Italian tools, USAG, they would call them. And they were supplying Ferrari F1 for a while. And but then ended up Stanley, American-made company, bought Facome. They said, we don't want Facome tools in the U.S. competing with Stanley tools here, so they can only be sold abroad, and they basically cut us off. So we couldn't sell them anymore. But and you can still find Facome tools. But I encourage you watchers and listeners out there, Google Facome and check it out. Their tools are really spectacular. And what I found was the engineering background of the tool design was absolutely fascinating. Got to go to their facility and meet their engineers and so forth. Wonderful tools, very expensive, but really, really nice stuff. I mean, jewelry quality. FAC as in cat, Facom. Facom Tools. So any of you guys watching? Yeah, there he says, hey, Brian says SK screwed all that up. Yeah, they did. Absolutely. It was really unfortunate.
Mako, man.
Brian's the Mako guy. He's our Mako tool guy.
Yeah, it's funny. The guy that owns the shop.
I'm going to have to head off because I got to put this little boy to bed. I hear him running upstairs. But
all right.
Mark, Ray, Louis Lee, Arco Heidi, Mako Man Brian, I got John Day, Josh. Oh, man. Listen, be easy, and I'll talk with you guys. Chassis John, can't forget him. Take care of me.
Peace out, buddy. Thanks for being here, bud.
We'll talk.
Yeah.
All right. I was gonna say that where my car is at, the body shop, the guy who owns the shop, his mom worked at a distributor that sold SK tools back in the 70s through the 80s. Yeah. So and in his toolbox at home, he literally has like every SK tool set, because they were in the green boxes.
Yeah,
like everyone ever made. I was like, wow. And I have a couple of them, and I like them. It's good stuff. I never saw that much in one place. I was like, man, you got the mother load. He goes, my mom worked there, so I would just tell her what I wanted, and she got it for cost.
It was an interesting company, but it's the same with my Facom tools. I've got massive set, multiple cabinets, more tools than I'll probably ever use now. But they were just so delightful. They were one of the first companies to sell a 72 tooth ratchet. So that if you're in a really tight spot, you could go click.
When was that?
Well, we sold those in the 90s, late 90s and early 2000s.
Well, now that's the rage. Snap-on is 80, Matco's 88. Now there's some of them are 120. I did buy a Snap-on ratchet that's very fine tooth. I think it's got to be around 72 to 80, and I got that back in the 90s. There's Brian. Brian, when did Matco start with the fine tooth ratchet?
I was just trying to think. That was
because this was Facom came out late 90s, I believe. We started selling.
Yeah,
we sold lots of their tools.
It was early 2000 when we went to 88, and actually, if you start playing around on the internet, the 88 tooth is a German. That whole, there's a lot of interchanging stuff in there because some of that stuff was around from other smaller companies, and we had that Fulcrum stuff. I sold quite a bit of it. It was hard because a lot of guys are like, "Who makes this?"
Yeah,
and you say, and it was bad enough they didn't like us because we had, well, we still do, but we have German screwdrivers and like net packs for pliers.
Yep. Oh yeah, they're cool. We sold a lot of their stuff too.
I mean, that stuff is like a highly automatic, semi-automatic rifle stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff works.
I'll tell you something, Brian. I'll go on record now. When you can put a deal together on those, I'm looking to get into Nipex, but
oh man, you should.
I got to ease myself into it. Brian's my pusher. He's got my credit card number on revolving.
That's dangerous.
You should have when we had our tool show, man. That stuff was dirt cheap.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, they're one. I love that stuff. They're one of the best we ever sold. They made super high quality products. And by the way, good to meet you, Brian.
Good meeting you too. I've enjoyed the show.
I thought we had
as a Porsche technician for 20 some years.
Oh, nice.
Even though if you cut me open, I have little blue Ford ovals that fall out, but there'll be a Porsche. There's a little red and black and
yellow in there.
Yellow will fall out. So.
Last time I saw you get cut open, I saw like Hershey Kisses fall out.
Hershey Kisses.
Yeah.
Wow.
When he came in, I thought it was Sasquatch, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is what happens when you don't. This is the virus. You know what I'm saying? You got to protect the face. So.
You're not normal.
I kind of cleaned up for the show tonight. I guess I didn't have to worry about that, huh?
No, you're good. But hey, guys, I have to jump out because I have an early start in the morning.
Okay.
Mark, I really appreciate you coming on the show, man. We enjoyed everything. The stories, it's great.
Thank you.
I look forward to being on your show next week.
Absolutely. And I want to tell your listeners, I've got something for them. Okay. I want them to go to my website, click on the free book button. It's right on the landing page, little red bar. I'll send you my ebook. It's called Filler Up. It's kind of a fun book, and that puts your name into a hat for my mini giveaways. I give away a lot of cool stuff. Last couple months, I've given away a lot of insane car books by some really cool authors. So if you go sign up there, you get your name in the hat. So sign up and subscribe. I'll send you my blog, and I promise it takes a minute to read. They're always short, but I encourage your listeners. So that's my little gift to them this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Now, you're welcome to stay on. I'm going to jump off and let the fellas. This is the after show.
The after show. Well, my wife is over there going, "Are we going to eat tonight?"
This is going to be a short one because we only have 10 minutes left.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to let you guys go, and I'm going to head off as well so we can go eat some dinner here. But I can't thank you enough, Lewis, for setting me up with some great people here. Ray, let's connect. Make sure you email me, Mark at Cars Yeah. I'm easy to find. And we'll have you on the Cars Yeah show. Love to have you be my guest. And even Brian here, if I knew who the hell he was, I'd invite him too. So
he's on Matco Man.
They tell me you're the Matco Man. So I think the Matco Man needs to be a guest on Cars Yeah for sure.
We can sell some tools and we can talk.
Highly endorsed.
I like talking tools. Yeah.
And like I said, I work on those old air cool stuff. So I'm not the newer Porsche guy. I'm the old guy. So
that's what I've got. My car's an 87 turbo.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's an awesome car.
Yeah, it's a fun car. Something I wanted when I was younger and I couldn't afford, so I finally was able to get it. So it's my orange crush, I call her.
Yeah.
With all affection. But yeah, I'm going to sign off here. But you guys, thank you for having me. Thank you, listeners, for hanging with us tonight. That was really nice of people to do that. And most of all, everybody, please stay healthy. Take care of yourself. And we're going to all get through this eventually. We're going to be okay. Sure. Yeah, we will survive because we are who we are, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great. All right.
All right,
now,
Mark, thank you.
Now I have to ask you, Lewis, how do I exit the room?
Don't worry about it. I got my finger on your button.
He'll exit. Okay. Well, all right.
I got you.
Hey, you guys, good to meet you. And all you watchers, thanks for hanging with us tonight.
All right, good night.
Cars Yeah, signing off. Take care.
Take care. Good talking.
Boy.
Good show. Good show.
Yeah,
that's twice you've hung late with us too. You're usually not hanging around that late, man. That's cool.
Yeah. Hey, I got some other people lined up to come on too. It's going to be good.
Good. Yeah, Mark's a great guest. That was fantastic.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So listen, I'm gonna let Chassis John in. And I'm gonna jump out so you guys can talk for a few minutes.
All righty.
And I'll see you guys next week. Stay tuned for more guests.
We'll do it. Okay.
Take care, Liz. Be safe.
All right. Later.
Okay. Yes, I got to ask John about a tool, as a matter of fact, that I know he has that now I need. Riv nuts or nut certs.
Uh-huh.
I have a American and a metric set, but they're for smaller thread.
What size do you need up to?
Well, now I got to do something bigger because the sway bar brackets on my Pontiac. When I set the car up at the body shop last week, I noticed this one bolt keeps pulling out of the chassis. I got to put a nut cert. I got to put nut certs in there. So I got to say, I think I was using like one of those chassis bolts. It's kind of like almost like a self-tapping gun. It's got to be at least a 5/16. I may have to go to 3/8.
Yeah.
I don't know, but John, so the name of the game is, what's the name of the manufacturer of that nut cert tool that you told me you have, the big squeezy one?
I'll have to go in the garage and look.
All right, you don't have to tell me now. Just send me a text or something.
Because I don't know what size. Mine goes pretty big if you needed to borrow it.
Yeah, that's going to be tough.
I don't know. Is it a Big Daddy? Is that what yours is, John? Is it Big Daddy? Is it?
Trying to think. I don't remember the name.
Brian, I hope you're tired and not getting sick because you really sound beat.
Man, I am wiped out. I am wiped out, dude.
Yeah, where you been?
Man, I'm wiped out. It's just
that's not good.
Trying to It's tough.
Yeah. Right.
Well, we lost John, I think.
Yeah, let's see. Maybe he'll reconnect. Hope he'll connect before we get off. But yeah, I think that's the way to do it. Just use the nut certs and be done with it. Because apparently, the sway bar in that car has solid links on the end, so it really is. There's no sway at all. And it's just pulling this. I think it's probably the same bolt. It's pulled out a couple times. I probably went to the next bigger one, but I obviously got to do something better.
They don't have there's not a toe stamp behind it, like where you would hook a chain to, like if it was strapped down over by that area where you can put a nut on, weld the nut on the inside, or
you have to get into the chassis, and it's not. I got to look a bit closer. I don't think it is. That would be another way of doing it, welding a nut. Yeah.
Because I had a problem. I think it was. I used to pull that was on the control arm. That was on the control arm side. Because I used to pull the control arm. I used to pull the sway bars through the control arms on the Mustang.
Oh, okay. It
was so tight, and but I don't think. But I do know that there's a eye slot where the frame was punched so that they had a tie down.
Yeah.
And you could, because the nut would bust off, and you can lay it in there and weld it.
Yeah, the only problem I've had doing that in the past is you really got to be
dead on.
Back off and just tack weld, because I've over welded the nut, and then it distorts the threads, and then
you're screwed.
You think you're trying to make it stronger, and you're just making it worse. I've done that. Yeah,
that's my saying. Why use Loctite? Just cross thread. Don't worry.
That'll always stay. Right. I gotta tell you, Brian, that, I've done a couple of jobs now, and that little 1/4-inch drive ratchet with the 3/8 head is now my favorite tool for small work. It is just phenomenal.
So it's going good. Everything's.
Well, yeah, they had they put the headliner in my car. I had to order more interior parts, just stuff to dress off the headliner. And then the guy tells me, "Listen, I think we should replace the front right fender. It's by the time I get done with the labor to make it right and smooth it and make it correct, it's going to be, it's not cost effective." Well, yeah, a fender is $500. So I did spend I'm looking at the bill here. I did spend $499 for the fender. It's $150 for the freight to ship it, and a $20 boxing fee.
Wow.
So, but then you say, well, you know what? You came this far. I couldn't find a good used one. So what are you going to do?
What was, who's that from?
Ames Performance. Big Pontiac place up in Massachusetts. I pretty much any repro stuff I bought, I got from them. They're just top. What's nice is in their catalog, they'll tell you, what level, like they'll say this is a really good reproduction, fits perfect, or they'll say the finish is great, but you may have to tweak it here or there. They really vet every part that they sell.
That's good.
So they can tell you like what you're in for, which is
nice. I need front fenders for my Mustang.
Yeah.
And man, I go look at them, and I'm just like, God.
Yeah. If we only knew that 20, 30 years ago, we could have hoarded them all. Yeah,
well, the funny part is 30 years ago, basically, I put remanufactured fenders, repo fenders on the car.
Right.
Because at that time, they didn't have patch panel stuff, and I had the normal rust in the bottom. And I really wish I kept the fenders, because now you could fix them, know. And I remember putting those repos on, and where the point of the fender, how it flattens out and points up and then comes down.
Yeah.
That crease, it was so thin, it cracked.
Wow.
So when you drive it after it rained, you'd have water come up from the fender.
Oh, shit. Wow. That's wild.
And it pissed me off so much.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when I stripped the car, because those fenders were junk, I threw them away.
Yeah.
So
we're looking at under a minute now. So
of course, then when now the reproductions of the reproductions,
right,
or even shittier. I wish I had the reproductions.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I know.
So,
like I said, hindsight. If we knew then, what we know now. But
yeah,
we do. So.
Well, that's good, Ray. It was good talking to you.
Yeah.
Like I said, I been trying to move. We got a warehouse. Me and 4 other guys. We got a warehouse. We've been trying to move in. I'm trying to get out of my storage unit before they tag me again. It's just
yeah.
With the virus, it's been a pain. Everybody's locked up in the house, going at each other.
Yeah, I know.
And one day.
Yeah.
So.